This is MTR1201, the Control Module Assessment Test 2, where moved to a fixed angle of 15 degrees on startup, and then moving the base, and in this case I'm going to move the fish body to rotate it, and that the control system should try to keep it at the same angle of 15 degrees. So this is the setup that I have with my fish. I have the couple of IMUs, one that's redundant because it didn't end up working. The Arduino, got the servo motor, and I've got a setup here to move the tail. I have the degrees indicated on here. I've got 15 degrees marked there. And so the test is going to be, I'm going to have some wind generated from this, and then I'm going to plug in the Arduino, which will activate the code. It'll settle on straight, and then it'll go to 15 degrees. And then as it starts moving, you'll note that it doesn't adjust. I've tried many days and many tests and many alterations to try and fix it. I've tested the IMU. I've established that it works. I've established that the scaling factor is 131, so plus or minus 250 degrees per second. I've tested that it actually records different angles, and then I had to compensate for drift, calculating the angle and then compensating for the drift. I did a PID control for servo adjustment, and then debugging and monitoring data, the amount of times that I've downloaded the data, had a look, tried different PID setups, noticed the change. But despite the numerous adjustments to the PID, the scaling factor, servo mapping, the fishtail, as you'll see in a second, failed to dynamically stabilize and move according to changing in direction. I don't have the skill to ascertain where and what to fix to finally get it. I've spent 3 days trying to research why it would be happening. I've ascertained that it could be hardware limitations. The IMU or servo motor may have physical limitations, although I've tested both, but I don't know whether there's something wrong with that. The time delays, I've tried a lot of different time delays with processing and servo movement. I don't know whether they'll be too long. And the PID tuning, I've done quite a lot of iterations, and it just doesn't seem to work. It gets to the 15 degrees, but then after that it doesn't dynamically change according to the change in the IMU Z-axis. I ended up including X, Y, and Z just in case I misinterpreted the Z coming out from the IMU, but that tested out okay. But despite that, I learnt a lot about IMU programming, PID control, servo integration. But in this instance, I could not get it to work for the tail to adjust. There was one situation where I had this kind of just moving slightly, but the fish was stationary and would incrementally just move up to 40 degrees from its original 15 degree movement. So, not quite sure why that happened. In the case of time, since I've about 30 seconds left, I'm just applying breeze stance, and I'll plug it in so it activates the code. You can see what I mean. I align it with the baseline, that little line there, to get it parallel, which indicates starting value of 0, or 90 degrees in the servo motor. So that'll activate 15. But as you can see, the tail is not activating. A little bit of disruptions. It has a little bit of movement there, but it doesn't move. I can move it over to there. Technically, that should move this way, I presume, so that any angle there would still bring that around to the 15 degrees. Obviously, if you do that, it'll just keep going around. But at the moment, even though that's activating some sort of movement, if I put that back onto 0 or straight, it's still sitting at 15 or 20. So a little bit of movement. But as you can see, I'll just sit here for a second. Still parallel. The lines are parallel. Thought I saw some movement there, but no, nothing. So that concludes the experiment. I don't know how to fix it.